Hello all, just again waiting for folks to come in. I'm just going to ask Desiree if you could check your chat. I just sent you a message. I just have a quick question.
Sure, I'm checking it now. Hold on.
So I think we're going to go ahead and start. So hi, everybody. Welcome to the August CAG meeting. And I'm going to just, without further ado, well, actually, let me see. Quick thing before we get started, I just want to acknowledge a new member who's with us today, Alberto Roldan. He's a legislative coordinator at NYCHA. I'm going to turn it over to OEM, excuse me. They're actually going to kick us off today.
Again, well, so I think Susan, yeah, I think you might be ready to go. So yeah, sorry about that. Okay. I wasn't sure if you were co-hosted and all that. You're good to go.
Okay. And I'm sharing my screen. Working?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So good afternoon, and thank you for asking NYSEM to respond to the questions that came in through the CAG. In reviewing them, we did realize that some of them were probably going to be better answered by DDC. So I'm going to provide a response to those questions that we felt were more appropriate for EM to answer. And then I'm going to turn it over to DDC. And I'm actually going to try to turn my camera off because I don't know how to get back to that because it's messing up my audio, I think. Okay. All right. Oops. So the first question that came in, they asked for an update on evacuation plans for NYCHA, which must be empty before floodgates are closed. Note the location of the one shelter on the map below. Have more beds been planned, and what is the current number who can be sheltered? So when we saw the first part of the question, we actually asked for some clarification on which floodgates were being referred to in the question. And we actually learned that this question was the result of a presentation that was given in 2019 by Joyce Cinderbrand from NYCHA. And the presentation was actually about the NYCHA plans for their permanent mitigation in their developments, and not anything to do with the ESCR floodgates or really anything that EM would have any kind of interaction with. So really those questions need to be directed toward NYCHA. However, I will say, in terms of evacuation, NYCHA residents and all New Yorkers, but especially those living in any evacuation zone, should really take their own personal action to plan and prepare for evacuations. You really need to understand the city does not call for an evacuation lightly unless there's a real expectation that it is a question of life safety. And really anyone who doesn't follow that evacuation directive is making a choice to put themselves in danger or put themselves in a place where services are going to probably be limited. So that's just something that people need to understand. Regarding the questions on the shelters, so the map on the right was the one that came in with the question, and I actually added also the image from our Know Your Zone website, also another way to find information. I think you might be seeing, oops, a way to find information about where, sorry, trying to get rid of that little message there. Information about, what zone you might be in. But I wanted to address the question of the sheltering. So the New York City sheltering system is really designed to be flexible and expandable. So when an evacuation is in effect and residents cannot find shelter with their family or friends, which honestly should be your first choice, you're going to be more comfortable probably, but you can access the system by going to the closest evacuation center, which is actually what you see marked there. Each evacuation center has a number of shelters around it in what we refer to as a solar system. It's often the case that the evacuation center is also a shelter location, but as that shelter begins to fill, additional shelters in that solar system are opened and people are transported from the evacuation center to those shelters. So this allows the city to effectively utilize resources as they are needed. And I can assure you that there is enough shelter space to meet the demand up for a full evacuation from zones 1 through 6. So the next question that came in was about this image from the presentation that we did last year to talk about the feasibility that we looked at for IFPM in the ESCR area. It says, why does page 9 show overflow right next to the building? Wouldn't it be better to direct overflow away? So I just want to clarify, this is simply an illustration showing potential overflow based on current infrastructure and doesn't represent any plan for overflow management, dispensing overflow toward a building. It's showing how water would flow through the existing infrastructure underneath any proposed IFPM measures and allow water into what we call the dry side, rendering it useless, rendering the IFPM useless. As we explained last year, the scope of work that would be required to address the drainage infrastructure is far beyond the scope of IFPM or any temporary program, but it is being addressed as part of the permanent work in the ESCR project. Then question 3. So FEMA helped helped NYCHA get storm ready. The East Village is full of affordable co-op buildings that are exempt from FEMA support. What is being done by OEM to prepare the non-NYCHA areas of the neighborhood that flooded in Sandy and to prevent displacement? I'm going to speak to the last part of the question first in terms of preventing displacement. The Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project is New York City's neighborhood scale action to address flood risk and prevent displacement. Individual building level protection is the responsibility of the building owners. NYCHA, as the building owner of their developments, were able to access federal funding, as were many private buildings across the city after Sandy. So moving on to talking about how EM is helping to prepare New Yorkers. New York City Emergency Management assists New Yorkers by providing guidance to communities and individuals on how to prepare for all emergencies through its Ready New York programming, website, videos, social media, and other outlets. I'm going to review some of these, and then I'm going to provide you with links in the chat when I'm done speaking on how you can access more of these. As you can see in this chart, Community Boards 1 and 3 have historically been top areas in terms of the numbers of presentations and tabling events prior to the pandemic. Of course, the numbers have dropped over the last year, but they are starting back up again now. And you can see that the numbers so far this year are sort of showing that. So any community-based organization or faith-based organization can request a preparedness presentation or a tabling if they're having an outdoor event especially. NISM also manages the Notify NYC, which is the official emergency notification system. Notify NYC is available in 13 languages, and Chinese and Spanish speakers can also sign up to receive Twitter alerts in those languages. New York City Emergency Management has 30 CERT volunteers in this area. CERT volunteers are dedicated volunteers who undergo a training program that provides basic response skills needed for fire safety, light search and rescue, community disaster support, disaster medical operations, and traffic control. In addition, New York City Emergency Management's Community Preparedness Program works with community networks to strengthen local resiliency. They've been partnering with LES Ready since its inception. So NISM attends LES Ready meetings and supports the network with presentations and materials and solicits feedback about the city's efforts through that venue. During emergencies, NISM connects with LES Ready to provide local support to those affected by emergencies. New York City Community Preparedness also issues a weekly newsletter and offers a regular emergency management program for CBOs, for community-based organizations and faith-based organizations who are interested in organizing and working on local community preparedness. So community leaders and organizations are always welcome to join those programming, to access the newsletter and the virtual programming. And for more information, you can email communityprep@oem.nyc.gov. Again, before I sign off this afternoon, I'm going to post all of this information about these programs and how to access them in the chat. As well, I'll forward that to the CAG as well. So question 5, at the IFPM presentation, I think they're referring to the one we did last year, it was confirmed that NYCHA was not consulted. Shouldn't this presentation be reevaluated, inclusive of the storm protections now in place and being built at Reese, Wald, and Baruch? So I'm the one who gave that presentation. I believe what I said, maybe I'm wrong, was that I could not speak to what the NYCHA permanent mitigation entailed. However, we have been working closely with NYCHA at several developments throughout the IFPM program. And in fact, the IFPM evaluation for this area was done in coordination with NYCHA and took into account their work and investment in protecting their developments. With those protections that NYCHA is putting into Reese, Wald, and Baruch, either already in place or very soon to be completed, IFPM would not provide additional protection at Baruch or Wald. Various reasons. A, they're already being protected by NYCHA, or there will be soon. Again, the drainage complexity was just insurmountable, and it's an active construction site for NYCHA, and it would have been very difficult to implement IFPM in that environment. I will say that IFPM has had flood protection specifically at the Reese boiler room since 2017. As I said, we worked with NYCHA to evaluate the sites that they felt needed IFPM assistance, and we provided that at a few different NYCHA sites. But we do expect that our IFPM will be able to be removed from Reese sometime in the late fall, early winter, because they are going to have that boiler room, the permanent mitigation for that boiler room will be complete by then. And sorry, just navigating the slides. Now that we are 12 months into the 24 they said it would take to install IFPM, and on this chart you can see there was a chart that was embedded in the questions. How many storms have hit New York City? The likelihood of a 15-year storm impacting the Lower East Side is high, and the upgrades to the sewer system described in the IFPM presentation isn't even out to bid yet. Why can't areas with no protection, such as where floodwaters come from the north to inundate Avenue C for several blocks, be provided with movable tiger dams, which could be used in another waterfront neighborhood once no longer needed here? So as we explained last year, there were many reasons why IFPM is not feasible in the ESCR area. The timeline was only one of them. We said that 24 months was an average for a project of this size to go through the design and implementation. If it had been feasible for other reasons, it is likely that a site of this size could have taken 3 years or more. On the issue of upgrades to the sewer system, again, this is part of the scope of the ESCR work, and this portion of the work is being released for bid soon. On the overall question of utilizing tiger dams or any temporary flood protection really takes us back to the overall feasibility evaluation, and specifically the drainage again. Placing temporary measures anywhere in the ESCR project area without addressing drainage infrastructure would not provide any flood protection. Water would enter the area through the drainage system until that system is permanently mitigated. Permanently mitigating the drainage is not within the scope of the IFPM program. So I just want to review again what we presented last year. We look at a number of factors when evaluating a site for inclusion in the IFPM program. Any one of these factors could be enough to render a site infeasible. The ESCR project was found to be infeasible across all of the factors, whether we looked at it across the entire project alignment, at a smaller block level, or at a site-specific level. Again, the drainage issues were simply too complex and widespread to be included in our scope. The timeline, again, if it had been feasible for other factors, would put IFPM either in direct conflict with ESCR construction, or if we only looked at NYCHA with NYCHA construction already in progress. And again, 24 months would have been optimistic for such a complex project. In the terms of risk reduction benefit, the 4 feet of protection that IFPM would provide does not translate into significant risk reduction for the neighborhood because of low points along the alignment. In terms of complexity, it harks back to the drainage infrastructure, but even at the site level, even when we looked at NYCHA sites, looking to try to do something with a just-in-time measure would require so much action to mitigate the drainage that we would have had to start outside the timeline of a New York City coastal storm activation before anyone in the city was making any decisions about taking action for a storm, because the confidence in a forecast at that point is so low. On the operational impacts, again, the coordination with the permanent construction would have made this incredibly complex. It would have required constant re-engineering and redesign and moving of the IFPM measures. And while ESCR was being constructed, it could have led to negative impacts that would have been able to actually deploy during a storm. So again, as I said, unfortunately, any one of these factors would have been enough to take this site out of the IFPM program. And when you add them all together, it really makes it plain that this site is just not a candidate, and moving ahead as quickly as possible with the ESCR work is really the key to protecting this neighborhood. So question 7 was WEACT and NRDC just released this environmental justice report on preparing for overheating. What is OEM doing to prepare this community, which will soon lose its natural air conditioning for the extreme heat? Another reason it's important that the PA2 monitor reports include temperature. The LES breathe sensors are getting the baseline temperature all the time. See them on the Pure Air map or with explanations at that link. So thank you for sharing this information. It's really something that NYSEM takes very seriously. Heat emergencies, as you know, we've already had a few this year. They are likely only to increase as climate change continues to affect us. But as part of our heat events and our activations, we activate our heat emergency plan and open cooling centers with our partner agencies. We also administered the Get Cool program last year to address indoor heat exposure for low-income seniors while we enabled them to stay cool at home to keep them from having to go to cooling centers during the pandemic. We provided and installed thousands of air conditioning units. Again, we provide education and programs on how to address heat emergencies through our Ready New York programs. And I'm gonna let DDC talk more about the sensors and including, I guess, temperature on their reports, because I think that's part of the question is where it relates back to the ESCR work. So just one more slide. The last question was related to conduct emergency preparedness outreach. Has this begun? So as we mentioned above, outreach in this area has been really strong for years, and it's a testament to the strong partnership between the community and New York City Emergency Management. Again, organizations can always request preparedness events through our website or by emailing us. I'll give you that link in a minute. At this time, most presentations are currently still virtual, although we are doing some outdoor tabling. Ready New York also conducts a Train the Trainer program for local leaders. Through which, I'm so not good at this, through which you the leaders are trained to conduct emergency preparedness presentations for their communities. This training can also be requested by community-based organizations and faith-based organizations by emailing Ready New York. Again, I'll put that in the chat. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I'm going to turn it over to DDC to answer the rest of the questions that had come in. So I'm going to stop sharing. Try to stop.
And Tara, I think I could share, right?
Yes, you should be able to share.
Okay, hold on a second. I lost my, okay, here we go. Okay, share. Okay. Okay. All right, can everyone see my screen now? Emergency management response? Yeah, okay, great. So I don't know why my, sorry, hold on 1 second. Okay, great. So, so question 2, page 8 of the presentation compared the New York City flood hazard zone map. In what year is the full extent of ESCR's protection currently anticipated? Again, you know, the PA1, which Jeff Margulies from DDC will talk about in a little bit, is on its way. And as Susan also mentioned, parallel conveyance will be on its way shortly. So once those projects are fully contracted and registered, then we will have a better update on that year of the full extent of the protection. So we'll have to come back with that one. For question 4, regarding the new modeling of seawalls, with ESCR's seawall, the water has to go somewhere, causing neighborhood areas to be inundated. What is OEM planning in the 2 Bridges neighborhood or Brooklyn? So we can speak to the 2 Bridges neighborhood, and I've included here a link to the Brooklyn Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Project, BMCR. So you can learn more about the flood mitigation on that project in the link. So once we could also share it with Tara, but once we post the presentation on the website, you can click that link there. Regarding the first part of that question, we're going to come back with folks from our resiliency department to speak directly to that. So there wasn't enough time to really get them here and plan that. So we will have to come back with that one. For question number 7, I'm not going to read the whole thing again because I think Susan did a great job of reading it. But as we will discuss later in the presentation, the air quality sensors do collect more than just the particulate matter. They do monitor temperature, humidity, wind speed, wind direction, precipitation. So they do collect a number of environmental data that helps inform the particulate matter readings, and the environmental specialists use that when they're analyzing the data. So it does collect I'm sure very similar data to what the LES breathe sensors are getting. And then the question number 8 about last week we had, which was a couple of weeks ago at this point, we had dangerous air, yet construction at PA2, which we now know elevates PM 2.5, was not halted out of safety concerns for workers or residents. At what level would OEM issue a stop work? When would people be encouraged to protect their air quality at home? Since we know cooking with gas creates dirty air, and indoor air can be much worse than outdoor air. So OEM does not issue stop work orders. Susan, I'm speaking for you on that because we did have a conversation on that. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but OEM does not issue stop work orders for air quality. Again, as we have responded to in the past, the city typically does not issue as a whole stop work for air qualities. We are, we do monitor the air quality just as as individuals and as a project, and understand when, the air quality in general, again, from the other week, it was the wildfires, etc. But the monitors, again, and I'll go over this a little bit more in the slides to follow. The monitors that we have are to monitor the potential impacts from the construction. So, again, that is what the purpose of the monitors are for. So as the air particulate matter in general, increases, it is that, net, which is the upwind minus the downwind. Again, I'll go over it a little bit later in the presentation, but that is what measures any construction kind of impacts, and that's what we're focused on. And we do, and as you can see, I have the June report in this presentation, and then next month we'll have the July numbers, but the air quality has very minimally breached or exceeded even the alert level, not even the permissible exposure limit. So the contractors are doing a really great job of implementing those mitigation techniques, the spray down, etc., so that we don't even need to think about that, because they're catching it, and they're not even catching it. They're implementing these measures that are in the plan before it even gets to a point where alert is issued. So that is not something that we need to. But again, we also, encourage the community to follow the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation air quality health advisories, as they are released as well. So Tara, I think now we could take questions for, the response to these questions as total.
Sure, thank you. And thank you both so much for answering these questions. So far I see that Wendy has a question.
Yes, thank you for responding. Susan, can we go back to number 1? Can you confirm that the NYCHA buildings must be evacuated before all the storm gates, whatever you call them, are put into place? Is the buildings need to be evacuated? Is that correct?
No, well, Susan's having some computer issues, but
I'm okay. I didn't hear the first part of the question, Wendy.
Oh, okay, because I remember you
Say
were
it
saying
again.
So question 1, if you go back to that, it was about the NYCHA buildings and that they will be evacuated when a storm is coming before the floodgates are put into place.
So again, I think what you're referring to is the flood protection that NYCHA is putting in.
Correct. I'm specifically referring to NYCHA.
Right. So those questions really need to go to NYCHA. We don't have any involvement.
You can't confirm that the buildings will be evacuated before the gates are put down?
That's not on emergency management to.
Isn't there someone from NYCHA here right now?
Yeah, there is Alberto, but let's just table that for now, because this isn't, I don't think if he has the answer, we can talk about it. He'll be at the CAG only portion. But I think this is a question that we should just submit to NYCHA. And if Alberto, if you do have an answer to that now, if not, let us know. If not, that's fine. We can just follow up.
Okay, he said in the chat that he doesn't have an answer right now.
Okay, so we'll do a follow up.
Can I ask a couple more since
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Let's see if anyone else has some questions first. So does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, I do, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, guys. How are you? So I barely heard the question regarding NYCHA. So can that question be posed again, please?
If you switch to the first slide, it has it written out on it.
It's a different computer, Wendy. So Susan, is it possible for you to read off your slide? I know you had, or if you are able to.
Sure.
Yeah,
I can. So the question came in, it says update on evacuation plans for NYCHA, which must be empty before floodgates are closed. And went on to say Note the location of the one shelter on the map below. Have more beds been planned? What is the current number who can be sheltered?
Okay, that's
That's the
something
entire
that,
question.
that's a question that, first of all, needs to be responded to by the shelter because they're the ones running the beds there. Secondly, the New York City Housing Authority is constantly updating their plans. So I hope that that answered your question.
No, actually it doesn't, and I'd rather hear it from NYCHA itself.
You are talking to NYCHA,
Who's speaking, may I ask?
Nancy Ortiz.
But I want to hear from a NYCHA staff member about who's responsible for the floodgates.
We will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't live in NYCHA, but this has been bothering me for 2 years, that there's supposedly around 9,000 residents who are going to get evacuated. My question is there any planning, and is there enough beds? If people are told they have to be out of the building before it's closed, how is this being worked on in advance?
Again,
Wendy, can I jump in here for 1 second too, just if I can? Because I think let NYCHA, we have a representative from NYCHA here.
Harvey?
Yeah, it's Harvey. Hey, Nancy. Hey, let's give them a chance to answer it. It sounds like they need some time. Let's let them answer it and we'll come back to it. We're not forgetting about this issue. We care about.
Thank you, Harvey.
you need to have the right people to answer the question from the unit that would be managing that.
Yeah.
I understand. That's why I send my questions in advance. I have another question on number 3.
No,
Actually,
hold it.
Wait a second.
Wendy, 1 second, Wendy. Okay, let's be a little respectful here. That's number 1. Okay, number 2, you constantly try to take over the meeting. Allow the other people that are sitting on this to ask their questions. You can't ask 20 questions in a meeting that's this short. So allow everybody else the opportunity. You asked a question, now let the next one go by.
All right.
I also did want to repeat again that the sheltering system is expandable and there is room for everyone in all evacuation zones.
That is not true.
Yes, it is. There
Can
is
we move
room
on,
to
please?
take shelter, but go ahead.
Can we move on, please? Thank you.
Yeah, does anyone else have a question?
I do, but I can't seem to raise my hand.
All right, Trevor, go ahead.
I just want to make a comment. And someone had said something about people not participating in the meeting because we're dropping off people. And I really want to make sure we stay on focus. I mean, I understand Wendy's question and Nancy's response. I mean, Nancy lives at NYCHA, so I would imagine she has a better understanding of those types of things. But we're also losing people because we're not focusing on the ESCR CAG portion of this. That presentation from OEM was informative and I appreciate it, but it's probably the 3rd time we've seen it. We asked a lot of the same questions over and over again. We don't really seem to move forward. So I'm just trying to get us to focus back on the fact of what the mission of this CAG was, where we started. And that is the ESCR protection for the Lower East Side. So I'm hoping we can get there because we're losing people because people sign on and they say, this isn't what I signed up for. And this is an hour and a half or sometimes longer. I just hope we can focus on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor. Yes.
Thank you, Trevor, because I have a heavy schedule today and I'm not going through the craziness. Nancy, I support everything you have said.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I mean, and given that we are almost at 5 o'clock, Wendy, if it's possible, if there are additional questions, if I think it might be best to just continue with the DDC portion. We haven't even gotten to the DDC portion, which is the ESCR portion. So I ask if we could have you email those questions separately. We will try to get any answers that need to be addressed to a different agency addressed earlier, but we just in the interest of time, we are almost at the 5 o'clock mark, which is typically when the agencies drop off. So we'd like to go ahead with this portion.
Okay, and I would like to clarify that you all,
I would like to
Wait.
speak.
Okay, wait.
excuse me, you were asked
This is Io, and I would
us
like
to
to
send us, you sent us a
I would
document,
like
you asked us for questions. Did anyone else but me send in questions?
There were
I
other
didn't-
questions. There were other people did send
But,
questions.
you
Wendy,
know what?
I understand that. We can still, this does not close the window on these questions. We can still answer them. But again, there are portions of the presentation that haven't been addressed yet. We can continue that conversation offline. Let's just get to this portion that is specific to ESCR, and we can
Fine.
continue the conversation.
And
Thank
I
you.
would just like to weigh in on this also. I think that, I agree with everything that has been said, but, it is important that, everybody has an opportunity to speak and to ask questions. I agree. A lot of these questions have been asked over and over and over as new people join the CAG. Maybe they can buddy with whoever they replaced to learn more about what has already taken place. But I think that when we get into a regular meeting, need to talk about some kind of format that allows everyone to participate and doesn't allow any one person to spend X amount of time, because, there is a lot that we have to cover. And I mean that in a positive way. I'm done.
Thank you. All right. Desiree, thank you so much. You can continue with this portion.
All right, thanks everyone. So a couple of highlights I'll just go through quick. I mean, most everybody got the agenda, so I won't go through this. So I think we all know what we're here for. We'll start with the overview of contracts. Again, that's our project area overview. I think we all know at this point where we are. And I'm going to have Jeff Margulies from DDC start with project area 1.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Desiree. So as it states here, the project area 1 contract has been deemed registered. What that essentially means is that the city as a whole, City Hall, the law department, the mayor's office of contract services, EDC, etc., has felt that we've met the obligations under the law to register the contract, and we are able to proceed forward. So as we've said numerous times on this call, September will likely be the construction start. Again, I know there's a lot of questions about the phasing plan, about what that will look like. We do ask for a little bit of patience. Again, we've always stated that once the contractor is on board, we'll have more information. So they're not officially on board, but again, we are proceeding forward. And as it notes here, and my 6-year-old is popping her head in, I apologize. The contractor has done some early surveys, which it states here. So, and East River Park will remain open and permits will continue through the end of August.
Great, thank you, Jeff. For project area 2, we are in construction on phase 1, which is Astor Levy Playground, Steico Park, Solar 1 area. And as I stated earlier, the parallel conveyance bid advertisement is, and I didn't state that earlier, it is expected in mid-August. So that's an update from what we've previously had. So we'll move into construction activities. I think at the last CAG meeting, it was requested to have a bit of an update on the PA2 project area 2 updated timeline. So we kind of updated the timeline that we have on the website. So now it includes kind of the January 2023 mark here. It had just Steico Park phase 1 and phase 2. So we've updated it to include where that where this phase 1 will be finished, completed, and where phase 2 will then start. Otherwise, the schedule, the schedule remains the same as it was the last time we provided a schedule. So just, a reiteration of that, the Astor Levy Playground and Flood Wall, that is anticipated to reopen in March of 2022. The Solar 1 Flood Wall Gate, that is anticipated to kind of complete towards the fall of this year. And then the next phase of Steico Park, which is that kind of this area here, here's the solar one area, if you could see my cursor. And then there's the phase. Oh, if everyone could just make sure that they're muted, that would be helpful. So it's kind of north of 20th Street, and then, you know, just south of the solar one area, that will be the phase one. And then once that is completed, we'll move into phase two. And then again, there's a little bit of time in between Astor Levy when then Murphy Brothers Playground will start. And that's, so that's an update on that. For the current work that is in progress right now, we do have, the majority of the work is the pile installation and the flood wall foundation. And that's mostly again in this solar one area and in the 23rd Street under the FDR, as well as the Astor Levy Playground area. And then within the next week or so, we will start the concrete flood wall, which is very exciting news. And I have a few pictures to show regarding that. A few communications that were recently issued. There will be evening pile installation. Again, starting, this is actually updated, the 23rd Street under the FDR. It looks like it's going to start next week, but the evening hours are essentially 3 to 11 p.m. So typically the shift is about 7 to 3:30. There will be evening hours now from 3:30 to 11 p.m. In those areas indicated in purple. And then starting, potentially starting next week, though this may be shifted a week, is the Con Ed work at Avenue C between 18th and 20th Street. You know, again, I just want to put out that we do always, you know, try to give the 2 weeks notice. If we can, we try and give more notice. And again, you know, it's approximate construction. As we always say, all work is subject to change. So we try to give you the notice earlier than when it is actually going to happen. And if it shifts a little and moves back or moves forward, then, you know, that's even more time then. But we'd rather let you know in advance and it gets shifted a bit. So, you know, again, we hope that these advisories are helpful. And if there are any comments, please let us know. And we try to post these on site as well. So we put together a little collage of the site photos around the Solar One area. They kind of go in chronological order. So the first one here on the left, you could see the H piles and the sheet piles and the foundation work beginning. Then they put in the rebar supports and pour the kind of second portion of the flood wall foundation. And here is, you know, that flood wall foundation poured. And then they continue the rebar supports here once that portion of the flood wall is poured. And then this photo is just from today with the formwork for the flood wall. So essentially this is the formwork, and then the concrete will be poured into the formwork, and that will make the flood wall. So very exciting. And again, that will be happening in the next week, is anticipated in the next week or so. So our contractors are progressing, and we just, you know, again, we think it's important to show the site photos. So before we go into environmental, do we want to stop to take any questions on that portion?
Yeah, Robin, go ahead with your question, please.
Hey, thanks for that. No, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. You know, I noticed the work, which is scary and exciting at the same time. I was on my bike though, and I noticed the signage is kind of, it isn't really there for biking. And I was coming east on 20th Street, and there was no place to go. So I know you all were working on that for biking. And
Okay.
I look at that again on that avenue, you know, when you come onto the streets before Avenue C, the Stuyvesant Town streets, there was no signage. I wasn't sure where to go. Just wanted to point that out too.
Okay, we'll take another look at it, and Robin, if we need to, I'll follow up more specifically on where exactly you were talking about. But thank you, and we'll definitely look at that. We are always trying to, you know, make sure everybody knows exactly where they're going, and I was on site today and also noticed one of the detour signs were backwards. So I did put in a request to have that fixed as well. As they shift the construction, sometimes the signs get shifted as well, and they're just not put back where they need to be. So thank you. And please, again, we have the inquiry tool as well. So if there's ever anything, you know, outside of when we meet for the CAG or the community boards, if you ever see anything, please do send it our way.
Okay. Thanks.
And Robin, you can also email us and we can get that.
Oh yeah, I just thought of it now because I'm seeing the construction. I'm like, oh, right, the other day I rode my bike. I was like, where do I go? I'm to be on the sidewalk. I'm on the street. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So Val, then Frank.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is the time, but my question is for Jeff Margulies of DDC. There's an article in the paper and it says that Scott Stringer hasn't signed because it requires disclosures in the city's passport system. And his second issue was the percentage of the minority women-owned business enterprises involved. So my question is, where is that at this particular time? So that question would be for Jeff from DDC.
Sure, I'm happy to address it, Val. So as I mentioned, the contract has now been deemed registered, which means we have gone through the legal process of moving it forward towards registration. So we did take a look, of course, at the comptroller's questions. And in terms of the passport questions, we did have some of the, as you know, this is a joint venture. The IPC, the contractor, is a joint venture. So there were some questions about some of the subsidiaries and whether they had registered in Passport. Passport is, just for those that don't know, it's the city's contracting platform. So anyone who's working for the city has to register with Passport, excuse me. So that was addressed. And then in terms of MWBE goals, so just note that this is a large contract. So the 16% is, you know, we're talking about over $200 million going to MWBEs. DDC has a very strong commitment towards the MWB businesses. We actually drive the city's percentage. And we recognize that sometimes the key here is to create capacity in MWBs to be the primes on these kinds of contracts. So a lot of times on these large infrastructure jobs, and this is not just a DDC issue, it's across the city, the primes are not MWBs. And in a job like this, they actually hire their own crews instead of subbing out the work. So the answer to that is something we actually just got state authority to do. We had to go through the state to get permission. Thanks to some of the members, like some member Epstein, we have a mentoring program that's launching in the fall. And the idea of that is to create that capacity in the MWBs so they can eventually be the primes, so that we can ensure that those goals are as high as humanly possible. We actually have our MWB team here in case there's more questions about that issue.
I guess the major question here is, so we can expect that a shovel gets in the ground in October?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
September, potentially, as I mentioned.
Oh, September. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, Frank, then Wendy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I could have just put this in an email. I wanted to piggyback off of Robin's comment before, Desiree. I'll send a follow-up and I can send some pictures, which just is heading southbound on the bike lane. When you approach the 23rd Street area, it's the second time, maybe there's a sign. It's not very clear. I didn't see a sign, but I was riding and trying to avoid all the ferry passengers disembarking. But I don't know, maybe the intention is you're supposed to go across and then just, it doesn't seem like, underneath the FDR, maybe like adjacent to Stuytown. But all I'm just pointing out is it's not clear that signage either when you head south where you're supposed to go because it's cut off. Anyway, I'll follow up in an email.
Sure, and I could just address that quickly. So and I don't have the bike detour, but you could look at on the website, the bike detour is up there. So the bike detour as it is right now is you are supposed to exit at 30, I don't remember, 37th, I think, which is right. It's much further north of the project. So, and that is where the actual detour is. And you're supposed to go on to First and Second Avenue to then connect back down. And then if you stay on the Greenway, that's only for kind of local traffic up to like the Waterside area. So technically we are discouraging bikes from using that kind of intersection under the FDR.
Yeah, I remember that now. Okay, thanks. When you're riding, you don't, you're not thinking on that with that wavelength. All right, thanks.
Sure, but we can double check to make sure that the signage is there, kind of north at, and don't quote me, but I believe it's 37th Street.
Wendy, then Diane.
Following up on Val's question about MWBE, there was a forum about it for project area 2, and Perfetto said that they only have hired one local person, one MWBE. Right. And I'm wondering, what is the percentage that they're supposed to be meeting in project area 2?
There's two separate things, Wendy. There's the MWB goal and then there's local hiring. So they're two separate goals. Wayne or Trang, I don't know if you want to jump in on some of the efforts we're making with PA2.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon. This is Wayne Lambert here, the Chief Diversity Officer here at DDC. And, I speak for more so in generally in terms of the goal setting, we look at the availability of firms across the board when it comes to these projects and set the highest goal possible based on the availability of MBBE firms. For that project, I believe the goal was, anyone on my team, correct me if I'm wrong, I think was that 12% on that goal for PA area.
That's right, Wayne. Yeah.
Right. And again, that's the floor. That's not the ceiling. And it's based on the availability of firms. So we go to a very detailed analysis in the goal setting process. And the vendor, I'm not sure what areas of work are left for the project. So the vendor might have identified one sub thus far, but for any remaining work, they have to try to meet that goal. And we work very closely with them to ensure that, they have access to MDBE information and so on. So they may have utilized one thus far, but, we are working with them, or they do reach out to us rather to find more MDBEs as the project progresses.
And what about the local question?
In terms of the local hiring you're referring to, or the MDBEs?
Yes.
In terms of local hiring, there are goals in different areas, Section 3 HUD and other local hiring goals on the project. So we do track and monitor it, working with our partners, whether it be the Department of Small Business Services and their workforce development team, other community partners as well, to ensure that there is a pipeline or workforce and access to that workforce. And we are tracking that as well.
So one is all there is right now, but potentially there could be more in the future. I understand that, but this was a promise made to the community that's really important to many people on this on the CAG. And so I think it would be good if we could have a progress report on this as we go along. One person is, that means you've only got 8 people on the job if it's 12%. So you've got much more than that. So that's a real concern.
Right, and I would want to look at updated numbers, because even on the MDBE front, I'm almost certain that there's more than one MDBE on that project. Actually, I'm very certain that there's more than one MDBE. So there probably is updated information that speaks to higher utilization. But even on the hiring front, yes, totally agree. One is not enough, and we are pushing to ensure that we have, this access to the workforce opportunities, and then the event that there isn't access to workforce opportunities, we want to make sure that we can provide other opportunities, whether it be trainings, whether it be access to certification classes, whatever it is that we can do. So we're trying to maximize the efforts here. But that's definitely a concern of ours as well. So we're on the same page, and we're going to be pushing hard.
Thank you. My information was as of July 29th, and it came from Leah W. So that's pretty up to date.
Again, Wendy, I think you're mixing the two. The goal is 12% for MWBs. The local hiring, unfortunately, only have one local person to date. But as Wayne said, we're continuing on both efforts to try and increase those numbers.
Definitely.
Right, and this is Trang Bui. So I think we've mentioned this in previous meetings, but just to reemphasize, both the contractor team and the program and construction management team came in with existing staff already. So they're not all necessarily locals, but as we're expanding the team and as the project is growing and progressing, we are posting every open position on our website. It's also sent to CAG, to the community boards, to Henry Street Settlement, to NYCHA. So we are making that effort so that we already have existing infrastructure that are recruiting from the local communities, help us feed the pipeline of candidates that are local.
Thank you. Diane?
Hi, Jeff, this is a question for you. And I got kicked off the Zoom for a minute, so forgive me if somebody already covered this, but I wanted to go back to the anticipated construction date. My understanding is that Community Board 3 does not, Parks Committee will not meet in August. And we're not scheduled again to meet the CAG again until early September. So how many significant updates in your construction planning and evaluation of phasing and construction timeline do you expect to happen between now and the beginning of September? How will we be informed? And what's going to happen at the beginning of September? Are we going to meet again and construction is starting the next day or something?
Yeah, no, it's certainly, I know the end of August is vacation for a lot of folks, and we recognize that. So we'll have to figure something out. I do think we will have some updates in the next few weeks. So that's a very good point, Diane. Thank you. We'll talk to Trevor, we'll talk to Susan, and obviously we'll talk to Tara and Paula to figure out how we can share as much information as possible. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Thanks, Diane.
So Robin, and then we'll move on to this. I believe there's still more to go. So
Okay.
let's
I don't know. Did I miss something about the southern part? The whole, the park itself? Did I miss that timeline? I don't think so, right? You just
No, we didn't give the phasing for East River Park yet. We do not have that.
You don't have that yet. You mean?
Correct. We don't have that yet, and that's what I think that was the question that was just asked. If it's going to happen, if we will have it in the next couple of weeks, how will it be communicated? And it most certainly will be communicated, just as we give Tara and Paula updates.
Then part of that, just making sure I'm understanding, part of that is the closing, that first phase closing, we don't know when it's happening. You're thinking September, but you don't know when. That's what I heard. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Thanks.
Desiree, thank you.
Great. So with the environmental, this is just a little recap of where we are. We just wanted to give an update. And apologies, this should be 8.5. DDC did submit the written responses to the air and soils questions letters earlier today. We'll talk about the questions that we received for the quarterly monitoring report in the upcoming slides. There was a letter that was addressed to Parks. Their responses are in progress, and they should be, the written response should be coming in the next couple of weeks. And then, you could decide as a group if you would like them present at the next meeting, or if, that's sufficient, or if you have any follow-up questions that they could provide responses to. The EM letter, we were able to turn those responses around pretty quickly and address that. We also received a letter from Lower East Side Partner Powership, which we will address here as well as provide a written response. And then we have the June air quality update in the next couple of slides as well. So I'm going to try and go through these, fairly quickly, but I do want to make sure that we're covering everything. So again, just a reminder, the ESCR contract is monitoring and mitigating construction-related impacts. There were a couple of questions about access to the quarterly report. The public does have access. It is on the website. And then, the CAG as well. There was a question in there about if the CAG gets to view the quarterly report before it is released to the public moving forward. So I think maybe that's something you could discuss if that is what is being requested. We could talk about accommodating that. Otherwise, we would just plan on, moving forward, issuing updates to the quarterly report to the CAG, when we give the presentation, and then to the public at the same time. There were several requests, not only in this letter, but also at the CB3 meeting. And that was one of the requests in the Lower East Side Partnership, Power Partnership letter, that a summary sheet be provided for the quarterly report data, as well as just the general air quality measurements and reporting information. So we are actively working on that. There is a kind of this air quality monitoring summary of data page in the quarterly report, which does give a quick summary here down at the bottom. But we are still working on kind of a one-page just summary that's a little bit easier to digest than the paragraph, perhaps. So so that is something that we're working on. There was a question about contact information being included. We can certainly include it, but you could always contact us through the inquiry, through Tara and Paula. There are many ways that you can contact us with your questions. For vibration and noise monitoring, and that's for kind of structures like the FDR surrounding buildings, etc. There were no impacts to date. And for noise monitoring, I know that was a question, so we've been, kind of focused on delivering this air quality report, which, as you know, took a little bit longer than we anticipated. So we will kind of look for a way to better kind of communicate noise reduction methods, etc. However, again, there were, I think, 2 noise complaints from the community in project area 2 to date. And those were, again, when the contractor was doing work in Astor Levy Playground and there was kind of an obstruction hit underground. And again, once that work was over, there haven't been, again, that have come into us, there haven't been any noise complaints to date. And again, here's the contact page on the website where you could submit an inquiry. And I do hear a television, so can everybody just make sure they're on mute, just so that way we can hear what's going on. The other question was on baseline or background data. And just so in the report in January, there was kind of a base, it was called a baseline. And that was kind of an average of the baseline readings. So baseline and background data, it really determines, and as you can see, month to month and day to day, the air quality changes, right? So the background data also changes on any given day, and it is not consistent, and which is why in the data plots, the lines are literally, changing every day depending on those, again, the temperature, the weather, if it's rain, so many different things take into account, air quality. So the background data is really that data that's collected kind of off construction hours on any given day, and during that month. We will continue to provide that kind of average line, but please, we do want everybody to understand that it really is very variable, day to day, week to week, month to month, depending on what the environmental conditions are. So again, that will be provided. However, the background data is really most accurate at the, before construction begins. And it's also, again, as it was reviewed in the report, there's kind of an upwind and downwind reading, and then the net is the actual kind of delta of the construction, which is the construction, and that kind of upwind is, am I saying it backwards? I'm not sure, but the upwind is that reading is the essentially the air that has not, passed through the construction site. And again, we're working on some graphics to help illustrate that a little bit better. So if you can just hold on any more questions on that, we could better explain it once we put out the fact sheet that we're working on. There was a question about the unit of measurement. It is micrograms per cubic meter of air. It is, mentioned quite a bit in the report, but it's just like saying feet or inches, so it is necessary to be in there. And then we talked about the temperature question previously. So a couple of other questions. There was one about the bus idling. We did contact MTA. We didn't receive a formal response as of yet. We are reaching out to a couple of other people as well. So we will keep you posted on that. And again, that was again in regarding to when the monitor had to be moved because it was in front of where the bus stop was, and again where the buses were idling. So that was in regards to that. There were a couple of questions on communications of how kind of the construction work, and which would then, you know, perhaps solicit, you know, the air quality changes would be communicated to the public. So we do, as I'm sure many of you are aware, we have the weekly bulletin, which gives the 2 weeks advance notice of construction activities. So you do know exactly where the construction activities are happening and what those construction activities are. The advisories we issue again 2 weeks before, and that provides a little bit more detailed information of the specific work activity. And then we've gone over several times the mitigation techniques, which again prevent those escalations in particulate matter, which, you know, as the air quality monitors have been showing, have been very effective in keeping the levels down. So we do, you know, we do believe, you know, in those mitigation measures, and that's why they are in place, is to mitigate that. And then again, you know, as we have said from the beginning, should something happen, DDC will inform the public of you know, an increase in particulate matter, or, you know, something that may impact public health. And, you know, we're in constant communication with all of our stakeholders in PA2, and, you know, they will be, you know, folks will be notified. The bad air days, again, which we did speak about earlier, the public should continue to follow the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, Air Quality and Health advisories. Again, we are, you know, very sensitive to those bad air quality days. You know, our folks are out there all day long as well. And again, those mitigation measures are really the most important thing that the contractor and the workers are employing right now to keep those levels down, or to keep the dust, you know, down, so that it doesn't cause any additional air quality. In the Lower East Side Power Partnership letter, I think many of the comments for that letter were addressed. Again, we have committed to at least quarterly reports, and then monthly we'll come and report on, you know, the months that pass in between the quarterly reports, which we will do today. And then we will have a formal written response to that letter as well. For the CAG follow-up, weather impacts to air quality, again, I don't want to repeat the same information again, but it is, you know, that was a question that was asked at the last CAG meeting, so we did want to make sure that we follow up on it. You know, the air quality monitors run 24 hours, 7 days a week, regardless of, you know, the weather, and it is just important that we implement those mitigation techniques throughout construction, because that is what is most important in keeping the, you know, again, the dust down, reduce the idling, etc. So that is our number one, you know, the number one goal of the contractor and the workers, is to employ those mitigation techniques. Weather does impact, but again, if we are on top of it, then the weather isn't, you know, we won't impact. So the June update. So for June, increased levels of particulate matter occurred on 3 occasions. The first 2 occasions were outside of work hours. So one was on a Saturday, and one was on, I think a Friday after work. And it was only for there was a short little blip. But again, it was outside of work hours. And then there was one on Tuesday, 6/8, which was for, again, a very, very short period that the monitors, again, showed an increase. And then the contractor employed the dust control. And again, within a couple of minutes, it went back down. And, as we did in the last quarterly, in the upcoming quarterly, we will include those data plots so you can see a little bit better, what the levels are as a whole. But overall, the PM particulate matter daily value, which is, again, typically 24-hour weighted, we do 15 minutes, remained under the permissible exposure limit for this month. So this is, again, really great news. So that's the environmental part.
So I see Io, then Frank, then Wendy. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you?
Yeah. No, I'm back. So I want to go back to. Actually, I'm going to take this off. I want to go back to. Can you hear me, Paula? Okay, great. I want to go back to the hiring. I want to make sure that I understand. So with regard to contractors, I did not hear a percentage that have been hired at this time. As it relates to hiring of local residents, I would like to know the position that the one local person has been hired for to date. So again, what is the exact percentage for contractors, and what is the position for the one hiring?
Wayne or Trang, do you have that specific information now, or do you want to get back to IO and the group? Of course, we'll give the response to the group.
Excuse me. You need to, excuse me, this is Aisha Torres, but you need to get back to everybody, not only IO.
No, we would get back to the entire group. That's how we.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
No, because the question was well
Go ahead,
asked.
Aisha.
It doesn't have to be repeated, but the information should be for everybody, because IO, stepped up and asked the question that I was going to ask also.
Perfect. Aisha, thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. The answer goes to everyone. But I think that we requested in a letter that we sent some time ago, and this was the group subcommittee, so to speak, that was working on a letter about hiring and contractors, that there be a report that is with specific data at every single meeting. So going forward, we would like to have an up-to-date report, even if it is the same as the month before. But right now, I want to know what the position is. We want to know, and what the percentage is for contractors. We understood that it was 12% is the floor, but it could go higher. But what is it right now?
Sure. So we'll work to get that to you. And yes, you are correct. In the letter that we did send back, we did say that we would have monthly updates. And I think we have been working with the contractor on, getting the numbers and getting the data. So we will provide that for you either, by the next meeting or in advance of that.
Frank, then Wendy.
Thanks. Desiree, back to the air quality monitoring. I remember you were very thoughtful, and other meetings too, on the layers of oversight on this whole ESCR project, and even in the hierarchy of alerts. But I just wondered, knowing that there is different pockets of funding from state and federal and city, but is there is DEP, for example, involved? I just think it would be helpful for us to kind of know on a higher level just what kind of oversight is also happening for air quality monitoring.
Sure. So that's a great question, as these all are, and there is a chart in the quarterly report, and then in the letter that DDC just submitted to the CAG earlier today, and I don't know, Tara and Paula, if you had a chance to send those out yet.
Yep, I shared it this
Oh,
afternoon.
okay, great. So in one of the PDFs, and granted, everyone may not have had a chance to look at that, but in one of the PDFs, attachment number 1 is the ESCR environmental monitoring hierarchy. So again, there's like 3 tiers in that chart, and I would pull it up, but I don't have it. I don't have it with me right now. And the agency oversight is the highest kind of oversight, and that is with New York City DEP, New York City DDC, New York City DEC, and OER. So that is the kind of top level oversight. And then there's kind of the management, which is the HNTB Lero joint venture, the Project Area 2 contractor, and the Project Area 1 contractor. And then there are the environmental monitoring subconsultants, which again, we hire, we meaning the JV, HNTB Lero, have an environmental specialist, and then each project area contractor will also have an environmental consultant.
All right, thanks. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to read that yet. I would have maybe not spoken up, but another 2-parter in case this wasn't in that, which I'll take a look at. How do we, I know that there are people who consider themselves more of an expert on this than others in the CAG, but how do we as lay people, I'll just say myself, how do we interpret in relation to when you're saying that like a measurement exceeded a level temporarily, maybe for 15 minutes or so, what is that in relation to? How do we compare that? Is there a way that in the summary that you're going to provide that it can kind of give, almost like a key or something like that? And that might be a really complicated question, but I'm just wondering.
No, that's fine. It is all very complicated. But when the oversight agencies kind of measure air quality they measured on like a time weighted average, and typically the time weighted average is a 24-hour time weighted average, and they look at that and say, okay, did the air quality levels exceed the permissible exposure limit in this 24-hour average? So our project is, and I'll go back and check the June numbers again. Again, it's the net value, so it's that upwind delta between the upwind and the downwind, and our contractors they even let us know when it's just, again, one of those readings, not even the net as well, when it surpasses kind of the PEL, but that is just for 15 minutes or less. So whenever we let you know in this, again, to be completely transparent, we let you know whenever it exceeds or surpasses that permissible exposure limit, but really it is the 24-hour time weighted average that is the important measure. So this is just, if it exceeds or if it surpasses it for a few minutes, we let you know, and we let you know that the dust mitigation was implemented and it was over and done with. So that, again, 15 minutes compared to the 24-hour time weighted average, which is what the supervising agencies actually look at, is again very small in comparison. So I hope that helps, but again, we're hoping that the fact sheets will give a little bit more insight with more graphic representation.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just looking for something more simplified, but we'll wait for the fact sheet and see if that can help kind of make me feel a little bit more grounded in what's being presented. Thanks.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Wendy, then Christine.
Okay, I have a couple parters to follow up on Frank's question. Will that summary come to the CAG before it's released to the public for feedback?
If that's, again, if that's something that the CAG would like to see, and you can make a group decision on that and get back to us, we could certainly determine if that's the course that the agency wants to take.
Okay, and you confirmed that you're collecting temperature and humidity data. Is that going to be released in the reports going forward?
Sure. So I mean, I think from what we've been hearing, was that the reports already have a lot of information, and we want, we were been asked to kind of scale back on some of the information. So the intention is, kind of not to at this point, and I would have to check on how that data is actually even, what it looks like and how it could be released. So I'll put that out there first, that I would need to go back and check on that, but yeah.
Part of the reason I ask is because the documents that we just received a couple hours ago changed the name of the monitoring from air monitoring to dust monitoring. So I want to go back to air monitoring, which includes the full range of information that should be included in the reporting. So it is important for many reasons, including planning and health. And I don't think it should be left out. It can be done in a relatively condensed way. It's not adding another 25 pages. I also asked you, and I also asked if the weekly bulletin that goes out that says, here's what we're doing this week and the hours we're working, can that include a line that says, please, suggested to close your windows during working hours? Many people don't do that without a reminder. And I've walked through PA2 now. It's pretty, I know it's not exceeding, but it's over the baseline. And even your reports say it's over the baseline. So wouldn't that be helpful in a general way to encourage people to protect their indoor air quality?
Sure. So I think just to go back to the baseline is not, again, the baseline is an average in the report.
I understand.
It doesn't represent the daily kind of background levels.
I understand they fluctuate all the time, yes.
Right, right. So the net value is kind of the increase or the, the impact or from the construction work, and it is very low, and it is below most times even the alert level. So the construction is ongoing on a daily basis. It is up to the discretion of individuals if they, want to close their windows, etc. We have given alert, the advisories and the bulletins, let everybody know exactly where the construction is. So if you live near where the construction location is and you want to close your windows, then that is, completely up to you. Again, the work that we're doing is not generating dust or air, particulate matter increases that are above, so sorry, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
In the spirit of moving on, and because other people have questions and noticing the time, I'm going to let Christine ask her question.
Thanks, and sorry to jump back and forth. This is really a question about the PA1 contract. I was just wondering whether Jeff could tell us whether there was a notice to proceed issued yet.
No, not as of yet, Christine.
Thanks.
We will alert everyone once that's issued.
Thanks.
Sir?
I think she's on mute.
Yeah, you might be on mute. Oh, you're on mute. Yeah, okay, there we go.
Who's on mute? Oh.
Yeah, you were on mute. No, now you're on mute again. Yeah, you can ask your question.
Okay. No, I just want to make a statement about the air quality. Given everything that Alfred E. Smith has gone through since 9/11 up until this day, you cannot say, oh, it's only a little bit of air quality. I have more people dying in Alfred E. Smith over 9/11 cancer than I care to tell you. So you're talking to one angry resident association president when people make comments like, oh, it's only a little bit of dirt. That particular area has a high rate of asthmatics in the developments. And we should be mindful that what doesn't affect you, but people who are asthmatic or who have respiratory problems, anything can trigger a severe asthma attack. So I really do not appreciate the brush off. I am let me leave it at that, but let's be very mindful of people who have respiratory problems in the Lower East Side, and specifically children. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Sure. And I certainly apologize. It was not an intention. I can report from what the air quality data is that we have. So again, we are set to standards to, to follow the local, state, and city requirements. And our contractors are working, day in and day out to implement these mitigation measures. And we are staying below the levels. And, again, if we want to discuss this more, we certainly can. I know we're short on time, but, in no way am I saying anything that is, disrespectful to. I completely understand that I have a child of my own, so I 100% understand, but I will be more careful with the words that I choose in the future. Tara, you're on mute.
We're definitely short on time, so we're going to continue with the MWBE section.
Sure. This was just an update on, we had our June quarterly ESCR Section 3 and MWBE information session. The recording for that session is on the Work With Us page. So if anyone did miss that, we had our preferred contractor there informing how to sign up through their kind of job portal. And then we also recently released an ESCR subcontracting hiring goals fact sheet, which is also on the Work With Us page. We did just want to remind everybody that we have the call for art, and it is open for the decorative mesh fences for the call for K-12 students and local artists, and you could submit virtually or in person. The deadline has been extended to September, so that way we can incorporate some of the school groups that will be back in session in September. You can find all of that information on the ESCR art page. And then just to give a quick update, we do not have an update on some of these on the items here. However, this is the slide we provided last meeting. Again, all of these efforts are still in motion. It was very early that, again, the mayor announced the funding. So the teams are working to push these forward. And when we do have updates, we will come back.
Christine?
Yeah, I just have, a comment about the bullet about the compost area. I think I just want to emphasize again that it is a question of really engaging with the Lower East Side Ecology Center about the logistics and timelines of the permanent location in East River Park, and that we should be on the table discussing that now. And I would just really like to encourage both DDC and Parks Department to get into a conversation with us, because we have requested that conversation now for some time, and we're ready to start this process. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. We'll take that back. I think they're still getting, the team together, but I, again, don't want to speak for Parks and DDC, but we will take that back.
Are there any other questions?
Hi, Tara, it's Diane. Sorry, I cannot raise my hand today. It just won't give me the option. Just a quick question about the Greenway detour. So where it says that the overall Greenway detour is approved via 1st and 2nd Avenue, is that the official pedestrian detour as well as the bicycle lane detour, or are pedestrians going to be advised separately about relatively safe substitutes for the Greenway?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's the second bullet here, where kind of local detours and access routes will be established with DOT. So once we understand what the phasing is, then we can kind of work on that a little bit more of a local level on the detours and access routes, once again, we know the phasing.
Yeah, and I
Pedestrians,
follow
for
up.
pedestrians and bicyclists.
Yeah, because that's, I think Jeff said earlier that he's hopeful that, construction activities can start in September. So that doesn't give us a lot of time to sort this out. So that's part of what I'd like to hear as, any upcoming updates in the next few weeks is, how are we going to make all that happen fairly quickly? Because we've had hundreds, if not thousands of people pedestrians using East River Park every day in this kind of weather, and that typically continues through October into November. So it's going to be a big disruption.
Sure, completely understood. And again, we are working with the contractor to work out that phasing. And we will again post signs. And I don't want to, though I do not know exactly what will happen once shovels in the ground happens in September at this point. But typically there is a kind of a period of mobilization and so just because, the contractor, unless something happens, the contractor most likely will not, shut down the park areas upon the first day that they're there. There is, typically again, like a mobilization period. But again, like Jeff said, as soon as we have more information, we'll definitely communicate that to the CAG and to the community as a whole.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Any other final questions?
Can I ask one about the document we received that's answers from the June meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the one, question 6. It's on page 6 of the one called CAG questions. And the answer B, one of the questions was about the bathtub effect in the East Village. And the answer is Avenue C and B measures to prevent flooding is now outside the scope of the ESCR project. And there's a contact at DEP. So for years, we've been seeing presentations from all of you which show Avenue C, and it says prevent flooding. Avenue C is always shown very clearly. When did Avenue C get taken out of ESCR, the ESCR area? In B.
Well, the parallel, so I think, Wendy, we might have to come back for that question. We'll have to take a look at that and see if we have more information on it, because we didn't answer it then, and I have to just go back, or we have to go back to just our notes and figure out. But
I don't live over there or anything, but it doesn't seem like it's very equitable to leave out Avenue B and C especially when those co-ops, affordable co-ops, are not eligible for FEMA support. So there's no federal money, not part of ESCR, but yet that's where it flooded heavily. It's Sandy.
Okay, sorry. So I'm rereading the question, and it is saying what measures are being taken to prevent flooding now. So the ESCR project, again, that is, as Susan mentioned earlier, the overall project that is going to mitigate flooding in this area. We are representatives of the ESCR project. If you want to know, if you and the CAG, again, the whole, want to know about items that are measures that are being taken to prevent flooding now before the ESCR project is completed, then that is something that DEP would need to speak to. Does that make sense?
Sort of. I asked because the IFPM report included that area in its map of the, what is ESCR impacting? What is ESCR addressing? But here it says, no, it's not. So yeah, we'll have to get more information on that.
Right, it's the measures that are being taken now to prevent flooding are outside of the scope of ESCR. The ESCR will address flooding when it is completed, but if there are other, if there are specific measures that you're looking for that are taking place right now, that is not something, does that make?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. And
Okay.
also question 8, it's, I asked about the budget for the parallel conveyance in the sewer, and it says that there's a total of 266 million. This is question 8, by the way, allocated for sewer work. And regarding one of them, the city's adopted budget plan had allocated 75 million for the project. So is that 266 million plus 75, or is it a total of 266?
I'll get back to you on that. I think we probably don't want to take up any more time right now.
Yeah.
So with that, this portion, Desiree, this presentation is complete.
Yes.
And it doesn't appear that any other CAG members have questions specific to the agencies. If that's the case, we have definitely kept them here 40 minutes longer than normal. So thank you so much, agency folks, for being here. We will continue with the CAG portion of the meeting for the next 20 minutes or so. But thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Just take a minute for folks to
Thank
file.
you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, just again, just in the interest of time, I did a roll call based off folks who put in the chat. Thank you so much, but then also just making my own notes. So I'm going to name everyone who's in the room or who might have just left. And if I didn't call your name, please let me know, but just in the interest of time. So Nancy, Christine, Diane, Richard, Io, Frank, Trevor, Martin, Camille, Valentina, Michael, Aixa, Alberto, and Robin. And is there a CAG member here that I did not name? All right, so then that's it on the roll call. So moving ahead to the other pieces. Again, just wanted to note, we know that we did just send you all, we did just get the responses from DDC regarding the letters. So if you do, obviously we didn't expect you all to read it before this meeting. So if there are any follow-up questions, just let us know by email, we'll follow up. So we will also follow up with the, Susan from OEM did send over the links that she referred to, and we'll send a follow-up email to you all tomorrow regarding that. Just wanted to get that out of the way. And then Paula, I know that there were some other agenda items. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm gonna put folks on mute if we can hear your background noise.
Yeah, I think we're good now. Thanks. Yeah, so we only have a few minutes left, but we just wanted to sort of share something that we're working on, which is, getting ready to start the process of the CAG establishing some more kind of formal bylaws to help, guide your work and your protocols and ways of doing things moving forward. So Tara and I are in the process of looking at bylaws from other CAG-like groups, to study them as precedents, and we are going to again, review them and then come up with a template, just kind of as a jumping off point of what the bylaws could be for the CAG. And our intention is to share that later on this month. And we hope you can we'll provide you with some more, specific guidance about how to look at this template and think about how it can be tweaked to fit your needs. But we will be asking you to take a look at this template to prepare us for the next CAG meeting, when we'll have a more intentional conversation about it during the CAG only portion. Tara, do you want to add anything to that?
Nothing else.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have a big agenda for today, which is good given how long the agency portion took. Something else that I want, so I don't know if there are any, before I move on to the one other thing we wanted to bring up, are there any questions, concerns? Okay, and then the other thing is the next CAG meeting is scheduled for, per our pattern, the first Thursday of the month falls on September 2nd, which is right before long weekend for Memorial Day. No, excuse me, for Labor Day. So I am going to be out of town. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I think we're going to have to find an alternative date for the meeting. So just putting that out there. We might poll you guys.
Why not do it the 9th?
Pardon me?
Why not do it the following Thursday, the 9th?
I believe that might conflict with CB3 parks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What about the 16th?
Then
Hey, Nancy.
But the 9th, the CBC3 doesn't meet until 6:30, so.
Yeah.
But they have to also do in person now, I think.
Yeah. And then also
So-
for some of you, that's 4.5 hours worth of meeting more. Actually, that might be more than.
Believe me, that's not new, but it
but
doesn't affect me.
Yeah, but we'd like to spare people from that if possible. So the 16th we could look at. I'm not sure if that conflicts with any holidays.
It's Yom Kippur. It's Yom Kippur.
Okay, it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, 23rd. We're getting to the end of the month.
I guess.
Can I just say, I don't think we should wait that long into September, because these guys are saying that they're going to have significant updates for us about phasing and closures and things like that. I think we
Okay, so
need
does it
to
have to
stay
be
in
a
touch with them.
Thursday?
Yeah,
Does
I
it
think
have
that
to be on
I think,
Thursday?
no, I don't think it has to be, Nancy. And I think that we should probably think about having the meeting on the 7th or 8th. I'm sorry, we
Yes.
can't do the 7th.
Yeah.
Because Rosh Hashanah is on the 7th.
Okay,
So,
so how about the
no, the 8th or the 9th. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
how
the
about
8th, the 8th, the 8th.
I was going to suggest the 1st.
People are going away.
No,
Yeah,
that's
people
Too
like
close to the
really,
holiday.
I think
yeah.
it's that whole week that might be a concern for
Mhm.
folks. Val,
Absolutely.
did you-
Yes, you're right. But I
Yeah.
think the 8th looks like the best day, and I agree with Diane. We should not be waiting until the end of the month. You know,
So how
this
does the 8th look for everybody?
works for me.
Yeah. So what we can
Works for
do,
me.
yeah, what we can do is it looks like people have thumbs up. Val, I'm not sure if you have a question or if you're agreeing.
Oh, no, when you finish that, I just want to make a brief statement really
Okay, cool.
quick.
All right. So we will, and we'll aim for does the same time work, or would it potentially work
Hashanah, that's the second day of Rosh Hashanah.
on the 8th?
Correct.
Okay, so then that does not work. So then, and then, well, Monday would be Labor Day, and then I imagine if this 8th is the second day, then the 7th is the first day.
9th? No, we can't.
No, 9th.
Okay.
It looks like that whole. So we would then be looking at what is, I think it's the 13th, which is the week of the 13th, which is also coincidentally the first day of school.
One thing, Robin mentioned that Rosh Hashanah is on that Wednesday, the 8th. We show it as the 6th, and we have.
It's the 7th.
It starts the evening of the 6th, and then the first day is the 7th, and the second day is the 8th.
Okay, because there's a CB3 meeting on that day.
Well,
So what about Tuesday? I know we didn't want to go this late, but how about the Tuesday? There's the first day of school, which is Monday the 13th. We could look at the 14th or the 15th.
I'm good with 14 or 15.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll send a doodle around for either the Wednesday the 14th or the 15th. We will be in contact with DDC. So if anything moves in advance of that, we will definitely try to get the information together. Maybe we will have just a quick emergency meeting, whoever can attend, but we'll make sure that nothing is moves ahead without you all being informed. So we meet with DDC regularly. So we'll work on that, and we'll send a doodle out tomorrow so we can just lock down the time. And
So
Fair enough.
the 15th is the Yom Kippur starts. So the 15th.
Okay, so the 14th seems like it would be the best move. Okay.
15th is Yom Kippur, Eve of. It's okay.
Oh. So the 15th is okay?
My calendar says the 15th, Yom Kippur starts at sunset, at sundown on the 15th.
The 15th, it's.
But that is at sunset. So we're not meeting at sunset. Sunset's like around 7:30, I guess, at that point. Maybe we can start earlier in the.
People who are fasting have to start fasting. And they have to start eating early if they're fasting. So it would not work.
For the 15th?
For the 15th.
Okay. So it looks like the 14th. So we'll send around. We just need to confirm that DDC can also make that date and time. But we will let you all know as soon as possible. So
I have a quickie question, or yes, I mean, this is great. You know, since they don't really know when they're starting, hopefully, I mean, you know, they're not going to wait for our meeting, right, to close the park.
I
don't doing that thing.
I mean, we'll find out. But if there is, I mean, the city, I've yet to, no offense as well, but I used to work for the city, and I can't say I've ever heard the city being early for anything. So I think we'll be all right, but we will definitely continue to be in contact with DDC to make sure that if anything, what is planned prior to our next meeting, that we all get you the information. And again, we might have to get together and do some sort of emergency meeting with whomever's available. Val, then Wendy, and then.
Okay. Just two. Okay, just two things. At the last meeting, somebody mentioned interim flood protection, and if you look on the website, July 20th, Emergency Management did a presentation in terms of Eastside Coastal Resiliency, and what they said about interim flood protection: it does not mitigate rainfall flooding, it does not protect for severe events like Sandy, it does not fully eliminate flood risk, it does not activate for nor'easters due to limitations in forecasting timelines and confidence. It does not serve as a life safety program. Measures are intended for infrastructure protection so residents can get back to their homes faster. Residents must follow all evacuation orders issued by New York City. You can just Google ESCR, and this is, like I said, July 2020. And this was the New York Emergency Management presentation at that time. The one other thing, I'm here representing Gouverneur Gardens. We have 3 buildings, 605, 645, and 675 Water Street, that are right next to the FDR Drive. According to the New York City Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, Draft Goals and Strategies of April 2021, in areas that face increasing exposure to chronic high tide flooding, the ability to maintain uninterrupted access to a decent, safe sanitary home may become compromised over time. This scenario requires programs that facilitate housing mobility, or the ability of New Yorkers to improve housing conditions and achieve housing stability by deciding to relocate. And I don't think anybody in 605, 645, or 675 Water want to relocate. I think they want to be protected. Thank you.
All right. Wendy?
You sent back some questions today, and I'm going to go through it and mark it up and send it in, but please, I'm sure other people have questions about it. One thing that's just caught my eye, and I want to bring it up here, is that there's, you know how they've been saying all along, the barge will bring in this 750,000 tons of fill that are coming. Here it says it's up to the contractor. So let's watch for things like that, where we've been told one thing for a long time that's really going to have an impact on our peace of mind and quality of life. If it doesn't come by barge, it's got to come somehow, and that's probably by truck. And that's going to bring a lot more issues into the neighborhood, I just want to say. And, there's one other thing, and I'm probably forgetting it. Oh, you told us that Sty Cove is giving away plants the last 2 weekends of August. Is there any more information about who's allowed to take them? Can you bring a vehicle or hours?
No, but I can find out. I have the contact and I can ask her.
Okay, that would be great, because I know a lot of the people in this group have been interested in moving some of those nice native plants to, where they live. Thank you.
Nancy?
I just wanted to say, good evening, everyone. Have a great evening. It's been a good 2 hours, very informative. And can we close the meeting?
You don't want to hang out with us for another 7 minutes?
No.
I second that emotion.
Thank you, Ayo. Thank you.
You might want to know that the Sky Cove Park Association's concert series has been going on very well. Monday, we have a Latin group that is fabulous.
This
And,
upcoming Monday?
certainly everybody's Monday. Yeah, this coming Monday.
Oh, I'll be there.
It starts at 6:30 to 8:30, and it's right at 20th Street when you walk in to the left, and it's been standing room only. It's been working
Don't
very
get
well.
shaken up when I go in there and I grab you to dance.
Wait.
We've had about 100 people each concert.
So it's at 18th Street, did you say?
20th, the 20th Street entrance.
Okay, gotcha.
So as soon as you walk in, it's on your left.
Thank you. And thank you all. We will definitely be in touch by email regarding the follow-up items from today. Any questions that you might have as far as the responses that we all received right before this meeting. I'm sure you want to take time to digest that, as well as some other follow-up items. So again, give you your 6 minutes back. Thank you so much, and we will be talking soon.
Thank you. Everyone have a good evening.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.